Do you ever wonder what Yizkor is doing at the end of Passover, the memorial service for our departed loved ones? What's it doing at the end of our festival celebration? God tells us, "V'samachta b'chagecha," and you shall rejoice on your festival. But our rabbis tell us that on the 8th day of Pesach, we recite Yizkor, dedicated time to focus on our grief, to remember our loved ones who are no longer with us, to remember and to cry. But doesn't that completely undermine the joyous nature of the holiday? We just read, "V'samachta b'chagecha ata uvincha ubitecha ve'avadcha ve'amatecha ve'halevi ve'hager ve'hayatom ve'almana asher bisharecha." You shall rejoice in your festival, you and your children and your household, the Levite and the stranger and the orphan and the widow in your midst. Passover invites us to rejoice with everyone sitting around our Seder tables, but that inevitably and painfully reminds us of who's missing from our tables. Beloved family members, friends, the 59 remaining hostages in Gaza, 24 of whom are believed to still be alive. The first part of the verse instructs us to have joy, but the second part reminds us that we also grieve. That gathered in this sanctuary together, some of us are orphans, grieving the loss of parents. Some of us are widows, grieving the loss of spouses. Some of us are strangers to loss, and others have been navigating grief a long time. Some of us mourn the loss of grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and siblings, and some of us confront the impossible, grieving the loss of children and grandchildren. The holiday isn't complete until joy and grief get together. But what's the unique link between Yizkor and Pesach? What if it's twofold? First, Passover reminds us to hold on to the memory of our loved ones. And second, Passover challenges us to let go. First, holding on. As the Israelites are getting ready to leave Egypt, despoiling the Egyptians, Moses takes something far more precious than gold and silver. He takes with him Joseph's bones. At the end of Joseph's life, he makes his brothers see to it that when God eventually delivers the Israelites from Egypt, they are to carry up his bones with them and bury him in the promised land. During the Exodus, Moses makes good on this intergenerational oath. In this way, Passover reminds us to carry our departed loved ones with us, their stories, what they taught us, the unique Torah they embodied in the world. And that holding on and carrying them with us isn't just an act of kindness to them. Yes, our rabbis teach us that kindness toward the dead, in particular burial, is chesed shel emet, the highest form of loving kindness. But it's for us too. The Midrash, creative rabbinic commentary in the collection Bereshit Rabbah, says that the Red Sea only split for the Israelites because of Joseph's bones. We read during Hallel, like we did this morning in Psalm 114, Hayam ra'a vayanos, the sea saw and fled. The rabbis note that the same word, vayanos, is used in the Joseph story when Potiphar's wife tries unsuccessfully to seduce him. We read, Vayanos, vayatza hachutza, Joseph fled and ran outside. The sea, recognizing that it was in the presence of the righteous Joseph, fled, split due to his merit. Why recite Yizkor on Pesach? Because Passover teaches us a valuable lesson about grief. We can drown in grief like it's the Red Sea. But when we hold on to their memories, hold on to their stories, hold on to their Torah, when we carry them with us, like the broken tablets that God instructs us to carry in the ark along with the whole, our grief, while always painful, can also imbue our lives with meaning and purpose and direction. We don't just light their Yizkor candle, we keep their light shining in a dark world by living out their values, by furthering the projects they cared about, by trying to live our lives in a way that makes them proud. The crossing of the Red Sea is seen as the birth of our people. It's a passing through of the birth canal. Something's waiting to be born on the other side of loss. We can transform our grief into meaning and purpose and new life. What we do with their legacy can help us usher us closer to redemption and the promised land. But then there's the other link between Yizkor and Passover. Passover doesn't just teach us the importance of holding on, it teaches us how difficult it can be to let our people go. When faced with grief, it's much easier to harden our hearts, to grow stubborn, to retreat deep inside ourselves and shut out the outside world. Pharaoh lives in denial. He never progresses through Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. He says no, and he says no. Even when those around him try to comfort him and try to confront him to accept reality. Pharaoh's courtiers say to him, "You have to let them go. Haterem teda ki avda Mitzrayim." Are you not yet aware that Egypt is lost? The Egypt that Pharaoh knew is gone. But of course, we don't learn what to do from Pharaoh. We learn what not to do, what not to be. Pharaoh's holding on is of a drastically different character than Moses's. Moses holds on to his ancestry and keeps his promise to them. He takes their life's work and moves it forward. He's guided by Joseph's bones, which split the sea, by the broken tablets, which he carries along with the whole. But Pharaoh's holding on is something different. It's a refusal to let go, which only propels him and those around him backward. And refusing to let go, he doesn't just lose his Israelite slaves, he loses everything. The Passover story teaches us to hold on to our loved ones' memories, stories, and Torah, but it also warns us against the dangers of hardening our hearts in our grief, of tightening our grip on that which we cannot keep. Hold on to their essence, to our love for them, to their stories and lessons, but let go. Ultimately, we're all tasked with, let my people go. Maybe that's why the first thing our tradition has us do after losing a relative is kriya. We tear our clothes or a ribbon we pin on the lapel and over our hearts for a parent, as if to say, while we may want to harden our hearts, while we may want to deny reality and retreat into ourselves, instead we tear ourselves open. We open our hearts at the exact moment our instinct tells us to harden them. We surround ourselves with community the exact moment our instinct tells us to be alone. We say Kaddish, the mourner's prayer, which praises God, the exact moment we may, in our anger, want nothing to do with God. Because our tradition teaches God mourns too. So in our grief, we comfort God. Kaddish, Yizkor, this is how our tradition teaches us to hold on and let go at the same time. I had a conversation with someone in our community that changed the way I look at Kaddish forever. It highlighted both the beauty and the challenge of reciting Kaddish after the death of a loved one. She was mourning the loss of her husband, and she had already completed Shloshim, the month of reciting Mourner's Kaddish for her husband. And she was asking permission to stop saying Kaddish now. And actually, in addition to that month of Kaddish, she had tacked on another month. She opted into a month's more of Kaddish. But it was clear now that she wanted to stop. And I said, of course you can stop. You're already going above and beyond. And she said, I know, but there's something in me that feels like it would be a betrayal to stop saying Kaddish for him. And I said, well, what is it that is making you want to stop then? And she said, because our tradition teaches us that every time we recite Kaddish, we elevate their neshama, their soul, higher and higher towards God. And so I feel like every time I'm saying Kaddish, he gets further and further away from me. And then through tears, she smiled and joked, I don't want him to go too high. I have to be able to find him. behind her question, I could tell, was really the question of how do we navigate the tension of holding on and letting go at the same time. And so we read this poem together. It's a poem written by the rabbi that I grew up with, a legend in the conservative movement, Rabbi Harold Schulweis. It's called Mourning. He writes, "Hold on and let go. On the surface of things, contradictory counsel, but one does not negate the other. The two are complementary, dialectical, two sides of one coin. Hold on, death is not the final word, the grave no oblivion. Hold on in Kaddish, Yartzeit, Yizkor. No gesture, no kindness, no smile evaporates. Every kindness, every embrace has its afterlife in our minds, our hearts, our hands. Hold on and let go. Sever the fringes of the talit of the deceased, the knot that binds us to the past. Hold on, not enslaving memory that sells the future to the past, nor recollection that makes us passive, listless, resigned, but memory that releases us for a new life. Return the dust to the earth, not to bury hope, but to resurrect the will to live. Artists, aerialists, on a swinging trapeze, letting go one ring to catch another, to climb to higher heights. Hold on and let go. A courageous duality that endows our life with meaning, neither denying the past nor foreclosing the future. The flow of life, the divine process gives and takes, retains and creates, old and new, yesterday and tomorrow, both in one embrace. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. Blessed be the name of the Lord." It's an amazing, striking image of moving through grief like aerial trapeze artists, letting go of one rung, not betraying those we love, but so we free our hands to grasp onto the next and move through life, forward. But there's a third link between Yizkor and Pesach, which is that when we recite our Haggadah, we notice that who's missing? Moses is missing from the story, unless, as some rabbis interpret, he's the narrator. And in that way, we retain Moses in the Haggadah. Similarly, this Pesach, we notice those who are missing from our lives, unless we continue to tell their stories and we continue to live our lives in a way that makes them proud. In that way, we retain our loved ones as the narrator of our lives, guiding our steps. And so in the interest of telling stories, while we all bring so many stories of our loved ones to Yizkor today, I hope it's okay to share a very brief story from my grandmother, whom we just buried before Pesach, my grandma Gloria Jacobs. She was always very athletic, and in her high school yearbook, she had won the superlative most athletic. But as a kid, she had witnessed this poor Jewish boy being bullied by anti-Semites. This group of bullies were beating up on this boy just for being Jewish. And she jumped right into the fray and punched the bully. And she was called into the principal's office, and her bubby, whom she was living with at the time, was called in. And the principal said, your granddaughter punched another boy, another kid. And we are so proud of her. And so that brings, for me, a fourth and final personal connection between Yizkor and Pesach this year, which is that for the first time in retelling this story, I think of Moses' first act as an adult, which is to stand up for the Israelite who's being beaten by the Egyptian taskmaster. While I have to learn how to let go of my grandmother, I will always hold on to her lessons, to her stories of standing up for the oppressed, for the vulnerable, for our people, and for pushing back against the people and systems that oppress us. As we transition now to Yisker, may we all swing through our grief like trapeze artists, holding on and letting go and telling their stories. Chag Sameach.